Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm celebrating 400 subscribers. It doesn't seem so long ago since I was celebrating 350. So thank you for your support and for your fantastic comments. I really like interacting with the comments, and if I haven't replied to you, I'm sorry. It's sometimes because YouTube hides them. Anyway, it's a tradition on this channel that every time I get to a big number like 400, I do a very silly nostalgic video. And today I want to go right back to my early childhood, and I want to celebrate the films of Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin. Now, these were a couple of guys. Oliver Postgate was a writer, a children's writer. He was a very interesting guy, Oliver Postgate. His grandfather was George Lansbury, who was a Labour leader and political activist in the 1930s. And he was a cousin of Angela Lansbury, of Murder, She Wrote fame. But he went down the road of writing little cartoons and films for children, and he worked with Peter Firmin, who was a puppeteer and artist. Peter Firmin used to produce the backgrounds and the characters, and Postgate would write the stories, and he would voice them, that wonderful voice, that voice of my childhood, you know. Do you remember when Postgate would read out, "Bagpuss, dear Bagpuss, old fat furry cat puss, wake up and look at this thing that I bring. Wake up, be bright, be golden and light. Bagpuss, oh hear what I sing." And he used to say it in that wonderful voice he had, that voice. "And there is the planet of the Clangers, strange creatures." Wonderful voice, the voice of my childhood. And he also did the stop motion animation. Stop motion animation is a type of animation that has a long tradition in England. It's that kind of animation where you position something made of plasticine or cardboard. You take a photograph of it, then you reposition it a tiny little bit more, take a photograph of it, and then when you put the shots all together, it seems to move. And it's rather wonderful because if it's shooting outside, the light changes so that when it all comes together, the light is strange, and all the background objects seem to be moving at the same time. It gives it kind of eerie, surreal quality, which I really like. Anyway, they made films together, they joined up, and they lived in side by side. Their families lived side by side in these houses. And at the bottom of Peter Firmin's garden was an old cowshed, and they converted it into a film studio, and they called it Small Films. And they made these series of sort of cartoons that were often shown at the end of children's television before the news in the evening. And they were the kind of thing that they were made for children, but adults used to sort of hurry home and watch them over the corner of the newspaper because they enjoyed them too, and they had developed a cult following. And many years ago, they were all released on DVD, and being the sad old man that I am, I collected them because I loved them so much. Because I think what Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin created, they were more than just good cartoons. They were little works of art. They combined a surreal, whimsical sense of humour, folklore and legend, a kind of whimsicality, a very English whimsicality that allies them with the films of Powell and Pressburger or folk horror. I think lifts them above the average children's fare. I love them to pieces. And so what I'm going to do now is rank my top 6 Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin series, and I hope you enjoyed these with as much nostalgia as I do. At number 6, one of their earliest efforts is the Pingwings. I hope you can still get hold of this on DVD. It's a very charming children's cartoon, and it's stop motion animation actually. And it's all set in this farmyard out in the country. And living in this farmyard, although trying not to be seen by the humans, are little cloth penguins. And you first see Daddy Penguin, and he's got wet and he's hung up to dry by a clothes peg on a line. It's very sweet. And the stop motion animation is gorgeous. It's very primitive, but more charming for being so. This was an early effort. It ran for 3 seasons, amazingly, even though it's kind of forgotten these days. But it's very lovely. Check it out if you can find this DVD. In 5th place, moving on to the more famous Oliver Postgate, Peter Firmin, and this was the first one that was shown on the BBC, I believe. It's Ivor The Engine, originally made in black and white, and then they remade the episodes in colour. This is great. It's set in Wales, and it's about a Welsh driver of a little engine. And when we were kids, we always used to imitate the engine. It went pishtikum, 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 pishtikum. And there's a little dragon inside the furnace breathing the fire to make the train go, which is a lovely little touch. So that's what I mean. It combines folklore and surrealism and silliness. The BFI, London, the head of the British Film Institute in London, they used to have an Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin day every year, and I went to it once, and they showed some old episodes, and it had a wonderful family atmosphere. And they showed an episode of Ivor The Engine, and the end of the episode, Jones, the driver, ends up in a ditch blowing bubbles with this guy, and then just finishes, and the whole audience just laughed. Brilliant bit of surrealism. I find it really charming, Ivor The Engine. I'm sure kids would still love this today, but they'd never show it. In fourth place, this is a much beloved series. It was a bit before my time as a kid. The Sagas of Noggin The Nog, which a wonderful sort of cartoon that is based on the sagas, the Icelandic sagas. And Noggin The Nog is in various battles with Nogbad the Bad, whose little tash moves up and down as he laughs. It's very sweet. It's a beautiful taking of old legend and modernising it and making it funny and silly and whimsical for a modern audience. It's utterly gorgeous if you can get hold of it. In third place is a series I've spoken about before on this channel, the Pogles. Sorry about the lighting in this place. Now, many people will remember Pogles Wood. This was a more famous series that came after this and was based on the same characters. The original series, the Pogles, was only ever shown once by the BBC because it was deemed too scary for little uns. And the reason for this is it's set in the wood. And the Pogles are these little people who live in the wood. And every morning a little hedgehog comes along and he hits this little bell with his nose to wake them up. And they live this idyllic Arcadian woodland life, except in the wood there be a witch. And there's this fantastic scene. Mr. Pogle is walking along in the wood, and then there's a whip pan, and suddenly there's the witch, which is a tiny little piece of cloth with a cloak and two beady teddy bear eyes. I can tell you now, it is genuinely frightening. And when I saw this at that day at the BFI, all the kids who were in the front row gasped. These were modern children, not 1990s children. So it still worked, which was great. And it's a good fairy tale, how they take in this kind of fairy child and the witch wants to get hold of the fairy child. And it's very sweet, wonderful use of language. Oliver Postgate was very intelligent and well read, and he uses all the old language like "you old besom," all this old sort of country speak, rustic language, which gives it a lot of character and atmosphere. It's great fun. Again, if you can grab the DVD, do get hold of it. Now, number 2, a special moment. Bagpuss. Once voted the best children's show ever made in Britain, this is an object of veneration for those of us who grew up in the 60s, 70s and early 80s. It starts with that wonderful, do you remember that wonderful sepia opening? Emily going to that old antique shop and the old cloth, baggy old cat puss in the window, and he yawns, "Whoa!" And then he wakes up and everything goes into colour. And there's the mice on the organ, and the rag doll, and the toad that plays the banjo. Such a beautiful series. Such evocative memories. I adore Bagpuss. Perhaps it is the best series that Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin ever made. But there's one other that I want to talk about. And that is, of course, The Clangers. Look at this prized DVD in my collection, the complete Clangers. It's not entirely complete, actually. I don't know if many people know this, but they did a spoof episode of The Clangers for election night. I think it was in 1972, but I might be wrong about that. And Oliver Postgate, it's never been included since on these collections because nominally Oliver Postgate said because he didn't think it was good enough. He was a bit embarrassed by it, but really I think it's because of the political aspect of it. Anyway, I adore The Clangers. The Clangers is set on another world, and it's full of these pink little pig creatures who only communicate by whistling, and they have little dustbin lids over the craters that are their homes, and they live on soup, which is provided to them by the soup dragon, which is a dragon that lives in the bowels of their moon, and they have an iron chicken that floats in orbit around the planet. I think this is their wittiest, most surreal, most beautiful series. I think this is a little sort of British work of art, actually. I think it's gorgeous. You totally understand what the Clangers are saying. Completely understand them, even though they're whistling to each other the whole time. The narration by Oliver Postgate is gorgeously written. I love the introduction. Now, what's this world? Who lives here? All that sort of thing. It's adorable. If you've never seen the Clangers, or if you're looking for something to introduce to your children, this is absolutely beautiful. Well, thanks for celebrating my look through of Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin. I didn't touch on every series they made. There were other series they made, but those are my particular favourites. I'd love to know yours below. And as always, if you like my content, please like and subscribe.